My name is John Parker, and I've lived a life many wouldn't understand. I was born and raised on a farm in Zimbabwe, a vast stretch of land that had been in my family for generations. But I never saw myself as one of those old colonial farmers, the kind that looked down on the black people working their land. I grew up among them, made friends with them. I came to love this land and its people. I married Sharon, a half Shona and half Ndebele woman from a village not far from my Gweru farm. She was my rock, my partner in everything. Together we built a life and raised 5 beautiful children. Our boys, Tafi, John Jr. and Eric, and our girls, Tina, and our little girl, Tondo Teresa. Sometimes we call her Tondo, sometimes Teresa. Our life was simple but good. The farm was our livelihood and we worked it together, me, Sharon, and the kids. My boys helped with the crops, their young hands eager to learn the trade, while my daughters helped their mother with the household, filling the place with warmth and laughter. I taught them all how to drive the tractors, how to tend the land, and when the hard work was done, we'd sit together in the evenings, watching the sun set over the fields. Sharon would cook sadza and stew, and we'd eat as a family, sharing stories from the day. We were happy, we were free. The land reforms changed everything. The government took the farm as part of a redistribution program, and just like that, my family's legacy was gone. We were forced to leave with nothing, and I couldn't even stay angry for long. I understood the politics, the history of this land, but that didn't make it any easier to watch everything we had worked for, everything we had built, be taken away. I decided to go to South Africa to look for work. The farm was gone, and I needed to provide for my family. Sharon stayed behind with the children, and I promised her I would return once I had enough money to take care of us all. It wasn't just about the money, though. I couldn't stand the thought of my family going hungry or my children losing hope. In Johannesburg, I hustled for work like everyone else, doing odd jobs at first. The city was a far cry from the open land I was used to, but I made it work. I did what I could to send money home, but it wasn't enough. It never seemed to be enough. That's when I heard about the Mamlambo, the money snake, from other Zimbabwean men working in the city. I thought it was just a myth at first, a story passed down by desperate people. But as the months dragged on and I saw men around me getting rich overnight, I grew curious. I didn't want to believe it, but desperation has a way of changing a man. I met an old Sangoma through one of the men I worked with. He told me that the Mamlambo could bring me the wealth I needed, but it would come at a price. I didn't understand the gravity of what he was offering. I thought the price would be small sacrifices, chickens, goats. I was wrong. I took the snake back to Harare. It was meant to be the key to a new life for us all. And at first it worked. The money came easily, the crops grew back on a piece of land I rented, and soon we were living comfortably. I brought Sharon and the children to South Africa, to a new home outside the city. We were together again, and for a while it felt like the old days, laughter in the house, Sharon singing in the kitchen as the kids played in the yard. I would come home in the evenings and find Tina and Teresa helping their mother with dinner, their faces lit up with smiles. My boys would sit with me talking about what they wanted to do with their lives, their dreams of becoming engineers or businessmen. It was everything I had wanted, everything I had worked for, but the snake wanted more. The snake grew. It became a presence in our home, something none of us could escape. I had to keep feeding it, performing rituals late at night when everyone else was asleep. The sacrifices grew darker. It demanded blood, first animals, then something more, and with each sacrifice the snake took a little more of my soul. I noticed the change in Sharon first. She stopped singing. She became distant, quiet. There were nights I'd wake up and find her sitting on the edge of the bed, her eyes wide and unblinking, as if she had seen something she couldn't explain. She told me the snake was coming to her at night, wrapping itself around her, suffocating her, whispering things in her ear. I didn't want to believe it. I told myself it was just dreams, but I knew the truth. The snake was taking something from her. something I couldn't protect her from. Then it went after my daughters. Tina and Teresa, once so full of life, grew pale and withdrawn. They would barely speak to me or to each other. There were nights when I could hear them crying in their rooms, but when I went to them, they wouldn't tell me what was wrong. Then one night Teresa came to me trembling. She told me that the snake had been visiting her in her sleep, doing things no father should ever have to hear. My heart broke. My daughters, my beautiful girls, were being violated by the very thing I had brought into our home. I wanted to stop it, to kill the snake and end the nightmare. But by then, it was too late. The Mamlambo had taken control. It demanded not just sacrifices, but submission. Sharon could no longer look me in the eyes. My daughters no longer smiled, no longer laughed. My boys sensed the darkness but didn't know how to confront it. We were all prisoners of this thing that had once promised us wealth. And then the deaths began. Taffy was the first to go. He had been strong, the leader among the boys, always looking out for his younger brothers. But one morning we found him lifeless in his bed, his face twisted in terror. The doctors couldn't explain it, but I knew. The snake had taken him. Next was Eric. He fell ill, wasting away before our eyes, until one night he simply stopped breathing. Then Junior I watched as my family, the people I loved more than anything, were taken from me one by one. The Mamlambo had given me wealth, but in return, it had taken everything that truly mattered. Sharon, once the light of my life, became a shell of herself. She no longer spoke to me, no longer acknowledged me. The snake had claimed her too. Now I am alone, surrounded by riches I no longer want, haunted by the memories of the life I once had. My wife and daughters are trapped in a nightmare I can't save them from, and my sons are gone, their lives stolen by my greed. The snake still lives, lurking in the shadows of our home, waiting for its next victim. I've made my bed with the devil, and now I must lie in it, paying the price for a wealth that was never worth the cost. I sit in the silence of our house now, surrounded by the echoes of laughter that used to fill these walls. The joy we once had has been replaced by a thick, suffocating dread that hangs in the air like a curse. Every night, I hear the snake slithering through the darkness, moving through the rooms of our home like it owns the place, because in truth, it does. The Mamlambo took more than our wealth and our peace. It took control of everything. Sharon is no longer the woman I fell in love with. Her once bright eyes are now empty, dull, as if something vital has been sucked out of her. She moves through the house like a ghost, her body going through the motions of life, but her spirit is elsewhere, trapped in the claws of that cursed snake. I know she tries to fight it, to hold on to what's left of her soul, but it's a battle she's losing. I see it every time I look at her. Sometimes, when the night is at its darkest, I hear her weeping softly, but I'm too afraid to go to her. What could I say? What comfort could I offer when I'm the one who brought this evil into our lives? My daughters, Tino and Thando, are no longer my little girls. They avoid me now, won't even stay in the same room with me. I understand why. They blame me for what's happened, and they're right. It's because of me that the snake has been preying on them. I should have protected them, but instead I sacrificed them to this monster. The nights are the worst. I hear Sharon tossing and turning in her sleep, gasping and choking as the snake crawls into our bed. I feel its cold, scaly body moving between us, coiling around her like it owns her, whispering things into her ear. And then, when it's had its fill, it slithers away, into the rooms of my daughters. I hear them too, crying quietly, their voices muffled by the weight of the snake's presence. Sometimes they wake up screaming, but by the time I muster the courage to go to their rooms, the snake is already gone, leaving only fear and silence behind. I've thought about killing it, ending this nightmare once and for all. But I know I can't. The Mamlambo has grown too powerful, too embedded in our lives. It feeds not just on the blood sacrifices, but on our very souls. Killing it would mean killing the remnants of everything we have left, and I don't have the strength for that. The deaths of my sons weigh heavily on me. Taffy, my firstborn, had always been strong, brave. He would have grown into a fine man, leading our family into a better future. But the snake took him in his sleep, leaving us with nothing but questions and heartache. Eric was next, his life draining away slowly, as if the snake was savoring every drop of his essence. And Junior, he didn't even have a chance to fight. I buried all 3 of my boys, their graves marked with stones in a foreign land, far from the farm where they were born. Each time I visit them, the guilt crushes me. Their deaths are on my hands. The community started to whisper after the boys died. People noticed the change in us, the wealth that came out of nowhere, the way my family seemed to wither despite our riches. They said I had made a deal with dark forces, that I had brought a curse on my house. They were right, but by then it was too late. There was no undoing what I had done. One night, not long after Junior's funeral, I overheard Sharon speaking to the snake. I don't know if she was fully awake or lost in some nightmare, but her voice was low and broken. She begged it to stop, pleaded for mercy. I heard her say, "Please leave my daughters alone. Take me, but leave them." Her voice cracked with a pain so deep it tore at my heart. I should have run to her, should have fought for her, but instead I stayed where I was, paralyzed by fear and shame. The snake didn't answer her in words, but I could hear it, the hiss of satisfaction, the slither of its body as it moved closer to her. I thought I could control it. I thought I could manage the price of the Mamlambo. But what I didn't realize was that the snake doesn't just take blood. It takes everything, your family, your dignity, your soul. And now there's nothing left of the man I once was, the husband and father who tried to protect his family. I'm no longer sure what's keeping me alive. Maybe it's guilt. Maybe it's cowardice. Maybe the snake enjoys watching me suffer, knowing that I'm too weak to stop it. I used to think the wealth was worth it, that I could bear the sacrifices if it meant providing for my family. But now I see the truth. There is no amount of money that can replace the lives I've lost, the trust I've broken, the love that has turned to ash. Sharon and my daughters are prisoners in their own home, enslaved by a creature I invited into their lives. And I am their jailer, too afraid to set them free, too broken to fight back. I see the pain in their eyes every day, the resentment, the fear. But I know they'll never leave. The snake won't let them. One of these nights, I know the Mamlambo will come for me. It's only a matter of time. Maybe then I'll finally find peace. But until that day comes, I will sit here, in the darkness, listening to the quiet cries of my wife and daughters, knowing that I am the reason for their suffering. I brought the snake into our lives, and now it owns us. And when it's finished with me, I know it won't be satisfied. It will go after them, devour what's left of their souls, leaving nothing behind but hollow shells. That's the true price of the Mamlambo. It doesn't just take your wealth, your blood, or your family. It takes your future. It takes everything.